Hey kiddos. So today is Friday and we're going to sit here and talk about what you're going to be doing in class on Friday. Instead of the daily drawings, we will be doing what's called art analysis. So every Friday when you come in, the screen will look a little bit different. It will have a different set of page numbers and there will be different tasks that you are to be focused on. You should have notes depending upon if you're in 2D or 3D. They'll be on either page 101 or 105 if you have already attached it into your composition notebook. If you have not, you need to pull up the little note sheet for art analysis, and I will have other copies of it up front so that you can see. You are going to be writing in those notes in each of those 4 sections describing what it is that you are supposed to be doing when you are doing art analysis in this class. So we're going to start here. Moving on. So what is art criticism? You guys have probably heard the word criticism before, and honestly, you probably have a negative connotation for what it means. That means that you don't look at it like it's a happy word. Criticism means you're breaking things apart to understand the pieces. It is a critique. And when you get into more advanced levels of criticism, you're breaking it apart to understand what's going on with it. And then you can offer a judgment based on whether it is good art or bad art. Now, we already spoke about aesthetic theories and how we judge an artwork for its value. We're going to go a little bit deeper and break art down, similarly to how we talked about The Death of Socrates by Jacques-Louis David. So art criticism is an organized approach to study a work of art. It's a way of breaking it down and looking at an artwork. So there are 4 main steps that you guys are going to be doing. Now, you're not going to do all 4 every day. Sometimes I'm going to ask you to focus on one specific component, but describe, analyze, interpret, and judge. And if you look at your notes, you got 4 little sections labeled for this. So you're going to write down all those parts and pieces. The artwork we're looking at is The Banjo Lesson by Henry Ossawa Tanner. It was painted in 1893, and we're going to actually apply these pieces to that artwork. So the first step is to describe it, and it is that simple. Tell me what you see, and that's what you need to write down in the notes. What do you see in the work of art? It can be very obvious. I see an adult and a child, and it appears to be a banjo lesson. And it could be a little bit more subtle. I see the use of blue and yellow colors, mostly in the background. Okay, so it can be literal. It can include the elements of art, which we really haven't gone over quite yet. So line, shape, color, form, value, texture, and space. You can even go into the principles of design to a point. I can see how the balance of the image is not even. The man and boy appear to be off to the left side of the image. Okay, so the step 1, description, is literally what do you see? And you want to describe it as accurately as possible. Step 2 is analyze. So we are going to break this down a little bit further. When we get more into the elements of art, I'm going to have you focus on those components specifically. How are the elements of art and principles of design organized in the image? So I already spoke to that a little bit. There seems to have been a choice to use blues and yellows in the background of the image. There seems to be darker values applied to the elements that are in the foreground. Okay, the colors of this image are all cool. The balance is asymmetrical. All right, so analyze is when you start breaking it down a little bit further. How is it actually being applied? How did the artist use line? How did they use shape? How did they use color? Okay, so we need to get into that breakdown there. The third step is interpret. Now we're trying to understand the deeper meaning behind the image. So what is the artist trying to say? Now we have 3 ways to look at how the artist was trying to communicate. The artist could be trying to tell you a story. The artist could be trying to create a mood or specific feeling. And the artist could have a deeper meaning, similarly to the moral of the story. So it could have a more over-encompassing meaning that it's trying to convey. So what is the artist trying to say? In this case, and all 3 of those components, they're not mutually exclusive. An artwork can tell a story and create a mood. An artwork can have a really deep meaning, but tell it in a story. Okay, it can have all 3. This particular piece has all 3. So the story here, there's an adult and a child based on the title. He's giving a banjo lesson. He's teaching that child how to play the banjo. That would be the story of this piece. It doesn't have to be a 50-paragraph story. Okay, and keep it simple. Mood. Does this image look angry to you? Is there anything about this image that seems to carry any sort of aggression or negativity? No, it's calm, it's soothing, it carries an air of reminiscence. That means remembering. So it's almost like looking at a fond memory. Meaning, what is the deeper meaning? I would say, and I could be wrong, but I would say that the deeper meaning here is love and care. This image is about loving and caring about the people around you and imparting your traditions to the next generation. Okay. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's not some riveting thing. You have to sit there and if you're read, well, the deeper meaning of this particular piece, because honestly, that's just annoying. We're not that level of pretentious. It can be simple. All right. So that's the third step. That's interpret. The final step, I know you guys are afraid of this word. Step 4 is judging. Now, that does not mean that we're talking behind the artwork's back. Did you see what that artwork did? Oh my gosh, it's so terrible. No, we're judging about whether or not the artwork is successful. How well does it communicate? How well do we connect to it? Now, there's 2 different ways for it to be successful. It can be technically successful and or conceptually successful. So technically successful means that the artist used the elements and the principles really, really well. They used their materials and media well. It was put together skillfully. Conceptually successful means that it is clearly communicating whatever it is that it's attempting to communicate. All right. So it can be both. It can focus on one or the other. If we think about Squares with Concentric Circles by Wassily Kandinsky, when we saw that in the previous presentation, there's really not a deeper meaning to this. It's look at the pretty circles. It was very much about design, very much about the elements, very much about the application of those more technical aspects. Didn't really carry any sort of concept or idea that it was trying to convey, except for the fact that it was technically successful. So you really couldn't judge it by conceptuality. This particular piece carries both. And personally, I would judge it to be both very technically successful and conceptually successful. So in this case, technically successful. Let's look at the arts and medias and all these things that are going on. It is constructed really well. It is a beautiful image. The brushstrokes may be rough and the designs might be rough, but we can still clearly see what's trying to be what's trying to be conveyed. We can clearly understand the story. We see how well it's put together. It's a beautiful technical image. They use the elements of art well, they use the principles of design well, the layout, the image feels good, and the way they applied the paint. Okay, so technically this is a very successful image. Conceptually, it's also a really good image. We could very clearly understand what the artist is trying to convey in this particular picture. And I think that's the main point. Now, that's all the parts and pieces. This is what you're going to walk into the classroom looking at. This will be up on the board. You will see very clearly an artwork right here. You'll see an artwork. It will have a title, it will have an artist, and it will have a date. Now, the only time any information like this is missing is because we simply do not know it. And there will be pieces that you will see that we may not know the specific artist, okay? Or that it doesn't have a specific date. Maybe it took a time range or we don't know where it's coming from. But I will have the artist information listed. And then you will see this box here. This is really important. This is the main crux of the matter. It will tell you what page you need to be on. It will tell you the instructions for what you need to do with that drawing, write, and then an answer task. So we have 3 main tasks every Friday that you need to complete in order for this assignment to be real. Okay, so you're always going to sketch the artwork. Now, guys, honestly, we are looking at master level arts. I do not expect you guys to copy it perfectly, ever. It's fine. Okay, you can use stick figures and put them in roughly the right position. As long as you have enough information to recognize the artwork, if you put in the title on Google search, we are good to go. Okay. Right. You will always write the artwork information next to the sketch. That's the title of the piece, the artist information, and the date. So all of those components need to be written down. And then the answer task. That changes every week. You will have a different answer task. Today, because it's our first time doing it, we're going to actually analyze the artwork that I just went over. If you were paying attention, you will have all of the answers already. Write at least 2 to 3 complete sentences for each of the 4 critique steps. Describe what you see. Analyze the use of elements and principles. Now, I am well aware that we have not gone over the elements and principles quite yet, so I'm a little bit lenient here, but I do want to see a good faith attempt. Interpret what the artist is trying to say. 2 to 3 sentences to interpret. 2 to 3 sentences to judge if the artwork is successful. And I want you to focus both on the technical success and the conceptual success. So please make sure that you are doing this whole task. We're going to do these every Friday, and they change every time. So you need to make sure that you're paying attention and be ready. I will always tell you the page number, so make sure you're reading it. I will always tell you the artist information, and I will always have an answer task. Now, these are graded in 4-week segments. So art analysis 1 will be week 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they are worth 20 points apiece. So that's 5 points per day. And the way the breakdown is you get 1 point for having the sketch. You get 1 point for writing the artist information, and you get 3 points for doing the answer task. So if you do not do the answer task, you are not passing. Make sure that if you have any questions, you let me know. But other than that, we're good to go. At this point, get working.